He was, lying there half-naked on my bed. His eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted. Cold. Lifeless. My wife, Claire, stood beside him in nothing but a silk robe, clutching a wine glass like she was hosting a damn dinner party. I wasn't supposed to be home, but fate doesn't send invitations. "Darling, it's not what it looks like," she said, her voice calm, casual, like she was brushing off a spilled drink and not a corpse on our sheets. I stared at her. Not him, I didn't know. But her? That face? I knew every contour, every freckle. I just didn't recognize the woman wearing it. Let's rewind. 2 hours earlier, I was in a meeting when my neighbor, Steve, called me. "There's an ambulance at your place, Ethan. Something serious." No more questions. I jumped in my car and raced home. Now, here I stood, surrounded by the flashing red and blue of first responders, in the suffocating sin of sweat, perfume, and betrayal. "You came home early," Claire added, almost annoyed. "I didn't expect you till 5. I didn't respond. My mind was burning with 1,000 questions, none of which I wanted answers to. What was his name? How long had this been going on? Did she bring him into our bed often? Did she even wash the sheets? But the real question wasn't for her. It was for me. How the hell did I not see this coming? Claire wasn't always like this. Or maybe she was, and I just didn't want to believe it. The late-night workouts, the sudden gym obsession, the changed passwords. The way she used to kiss me and now just patted my back like I was a sick dog. And now here she was calm as ever, while EMTs checked the pulse of a man who'd just finished fooling around with my wife and apparently died doing it. How did he die? I asked one of the paramedics. Heart failure, probably. We'll know more after the autopsy. I turned back to Claire. How old was he? She shrugged. 20-something. That was her response. Not shame. Not grief. A shrug. I almost laughed. Almost. But my chest was too tight, and my hands too clenched. One of the officers asked if I needed to go to the station to answer questions. Claire cut in. No need. It's a private matter. I'll handle everything. She'll handle it. Like this was a hotel mix-up, not a death in our marital bed. I walked into the kitchen. I needed air, but the house felt like a coffin. I opened a drawer, pulled out the manila folder I'd been building in secret. Months of evidence. Emails. Photos. GPS logs. I had it all. I had just been waiting for the right moment. And this? Oh, this was the moment. She walked in behind me, sipping her wine. So now what? You gonna cry? Throw a tantrum? I dropped the folder on the table. Claire glanced at it, then smiled, as if I just handed her divorce papers wrapped in a bow. You were always such a planner, she said, swirling her wine. I said nothing, just stared at her. This woman I used to love. This woman who didn't even flinch when her lover dropped dead on our mattress. I hope he was worth it, I muttered. Claire leaned in and whispered, oh, he was. That was it. That was the moment I stopped being her husband and started becoming her end. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Hell, she didn't even flinch when I said the words. I'm done, Claire. She just smirked like she'd won something. Finally, she said, pouring herself another glass of wine. I thought you'd never grow a spine. I swear, if I hadn't had months to prepare for this, I might have lost it right there. But this wasn't a surprise. This was the confirmation. The finale to a betrayal I'd sensed but never wanted to believe. I sat down at the table, the file of evidence between us like a loaded gun. She didn't even look nervous. You know, Claire said, taking a slow sip, you were never supposed to find out. But once you did, I actually felt relieved. Relieved. I repeated, stunned. Yeah, she said with a shrug. I hated pretending. Coming home, pretending to want you, faking those little bedtime routines. I deserved better. That hit like a brick to the chest. Claire walked over, leaned against the wall, her robe slipping slightly off one shoulder. She was performing now, like she always did. Always the star of her own twisted movie. So how many were there? I asked, keeping my voice flat. Does it matter? She replied. You weren't satisfying me emotionally, physically, mentally. You were just there. She looked me dead in the eyes and said it. You were just my safety net. That's when something inside me cracked, not with weakness, but with clarity. I had given everything to this woman, built a life, a future. Gave her loyalty she never even asked for because I thought that's what love was. But she'd burned it all down for a cheap thrill with some guy who couldn't even last through one damn session. And she didn't care. You know what's funny? She said, walking around the table. You were always so proud of how stable you were. Like being predictable was some prize. But I needed excitement. Fire. You were oatmeal. I laughed, bitter and broken. So your solution was to bring fire into our home? Into our bed? Why not? She shot back. You stopped touching me like a woman. I started feeling like your roommate. And Brandon? He made me feel alive again. Until he died, I said, coldly. She paused. Just for a second. But even then, no remorse. Just annoyance. He was weak, she muttered. Too much energy drink and ego, not enough stamina. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. I felt like the walls were closing in. You don't even care that someone died here today. She tilted her head. Why should I? He's not my husband. Silence filled the room. She crossed her arms. So what now? You file for divorce? Tell all your little friends what a witch I am. No, I said, voice steady. I ruin you. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I picked up the folder and held it up. I've been documenting everything. Every lie. Every message. Every hotel you checked into while I was working overtime to pay off your car. Claire's smirk faltered for the first time. I'm not just leaving, I said. I'm taking the house. The accounts. And every last bit of your reputation. You don't walk away from this clean. She stepped closer, face tightening. You think anyone's going to care? You're the boring husband. I'm the victim. I'll cry a little. Say you were abusive or controlling. People will eat it up. I leaned in. Then I better make sure the truth comes out first. She didn't smile that time. This wasn't a love story. This was war. And she just realized she'd picked the wrong man to betray. The moment she realized I wasn't bluffing, just that brief flicker of doubt in her smug little smile was the first real one I'd felt in years. Claire had built her kingdom on lies, manipulation, and fake smiles. But now, her throne was cracking. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. That terrified her more than any yelling ever could. She followed me as I walked upstairs to our bedroom. No, her playground. What are you going to do? Upload those pictures? Send messages to my clients? My boss? She said, trying to keep her voice level, but I could hear the edge. The panic bleeding through the confidence. I didn't respond. The room still reeked of cheap cologne, sweat, and betrayal. Her lover's body had just been zipped into a black bag an hour ago, and yet Claire was already trying to shift into survival mode. She knew how to manipulate the world. She'd done it with everyone, friends, coworkers, even her own mother. But me? She forgot I'd watched her for years. And I'd stopped loving her months ago. I'm not stupid, Ethan, she hissed. If you ruin me, I take you down with me. I turned slowly. Try me. We stared each other down. Two strangers who once said, I do. I opened the closet, grabbed a duffel bag, and started tossing in clothes. Not for me, for her. I wasn't leaving this house. She was. And I didn't care where she went. She could sleep in one of her gym bros' cars for all I cared. She folded her arms. You can't kick me out of the house. My name is on the deed. I tossed a pair of heels at her feet. Try living here when your bank account's frozen and your friends know exactly who you are. That shut her up. Finally, she sat on the edge of the bed, our bed, her legs crossed, pretending she still had control. But I could see the tension in her jaw, the grip on her wine glass. She was calculating now, searching for an angle. And then came the shift. Her voice softened. Ethan. I know I messed up. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Messed up? Claire, you turned our marriage into a reality show without telling me I was in it. She lowered her gaze. I felt invisible. Then you should have talked to me, I snapped. Not drag strangers into our home and let them screw you in my bed. I didn't mean to hurt you. Those words. That weak, lifeless line. Every liar's favorite fallback. I picked up her purse and dumped it onto the floor. Dozens of little receipts and scraps spilled out, including a motel keycard. Still warm. I already talked to my lawyer, I said. Everything's in motion. You're going to sign the divorce papers. You'll take nothing. You'll disappear. She stared at the keycard, then back at me. You think this makes you strong? No, I said. It makes me free. She stood slowly, wine glass still in hand. You're going to regret this. That's when I stepped in close. Real close. So she couldn't look away. No. You're going to regret ever thinking I was too weak to fight back. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then she threw the wine in my face. Red splashed down my shirt, staining everything. She smirked again, stepping back like she'd reclaimed some power. But what she didn't realize, that was the last move she'd ever get to make. I wiped my face and smiled. Because I'd already made mine. And the fallout was coming fast. The wine dripped down my face, warm and sticky, but I didn't flinch. Claire expected me to lose it, scream, maybe throw something. But I gave her nothing. That scared her more than any explosion ever could. She stood there frozen, the glass still in her hand, waiting for my reaction. But the silence hit harder than any threat. "You're not going to say anything?" she finally asked. "No," I said calmly, because I already said everything that mattered. "Now, I act." Her jaw tightened. "You're trying to scare me. But you can't. You won't do anything." I stepped aside and pointed at the open suitcase on the bed. "Pack." She laughed. That cruel, arrogant laugh I used to mistake for confidence. "You think I'm leaving? This is my house too." I wiped the wine from my face, tossed the towel onto the floor, and turned to her one last time. "Not after tomorrow. The moment the court order hits, you're gone. And if you resist, I make every disgusting secret of yours public. Starting with Brandon. Then Michael. Then your boss." She stiffened. Yes, I knew about Michael, the guy she met on her so-called yoga retreats. And her boss? Let's just say she'd gotten more than a promotion during that conference in Chicago last year. Claire bit her lip. For the first time, I saw it, real fear. Not because she cared about what she'd done, but because someone finally had enough power to turn her games against her. "Who's going to believe you?" she whispered. "You think people will listen to the guy whose wife cheated?" "No," I said. "They'll believe the screenshots. The videos. The bank statements. The receipts. The call logs." Her face went pale. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit play. Her voice filled the room. Loud. Clear. Moaning a name that definitely wasn't mine. Then laughing, breathless. "Ethan thinks I'm out with the girls. What a loser." Claire lunged forward to grab the phone, but I stepped back. "Don't," I warned, my voice low and firm. "You can't claw your way out of this one. You're finished." She stood there breathing heavy, shaking with rage. "You're going to ruin everything I built." "No, Claire. You did that yourself. I'm just turning on the lights." She stood silent for a long moment. Then, like flipping a switch, she changed tones again. Voice soft. Eyes wide. The helpless little girl act. "Ethan, we used to love each other. We can fix this." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean I can forgive you while you keep lying and sneaking around?" She stepped closer. Touched my chest. "We can start over." I gently took her hand off me. "You buried us the day you let another man die in our bed." Tears welled up in her eyes. But I didn't buy it. Not for a second. Claire only cried when it benefited her. "I'll tell them it was all a misunderstanding," she tried. "That he was just a friend." "Save it." I cut her off. "The police already have the report. The coroner knows it wasn't natural. The guy had enough stimulants in his system to kill a horse. He didn't come here to talk about the weather." She turned and threw the wine glass at the wall. It shattered into 100 pieces. F*****KU, Ethan," she screamed. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said, heading for the door. "I'm just not a monster pretending to be a wife." As I walked out, I heard her scream behind me, something incoherent, maybe threats, maybe curses. I didn't care. Because now the real work began. The lawyer was ready. The evidence was lined up. The storm had started. And Claire? She had no idea how far she was about to fall. By the next morning, everything was in motion. Claire had stormed out late that night, slamming the door behind her, probably off to stay with one of the men she hadn't yet buried under shame. I didn't ask. I didn't care. For the first time in years, the house felt silent, not peaceful, but stripped of poison. I woke up early, made coffee like I always did, and sat in the kitchen staring at the divorce papers one last time before sending them to my lawyer. Every signature line was already marked. All the evidence, printed and digital, was securely backed up. Photos, texts, receipts, footage. I even had recordings of her phone calls. You learn to think ahead when you live with someone who smiles while stabbing you in the back. At 9 a.m., I made the first call. Her workplace. I didn't have to say much. Just send an anonymous tip, with a few attachments. The audio of her talking about how she seduced her boss to speed up the promotion was enough to make HR pause whatever they were doing. I didn't need her to get fired. I needed them to start looking at her differently. Doubting her. Pulling back from her fake charm. By noon, her social media accounts started looking quiet. Fewer likes. Comments drying up. The perfect little influencer image she built was cracking. A few anonymous profiles, mine, started leaking the truth in the comments. Nothing cruel. Just enough to sow seeds. Isn't this the chick who let a guy die in her house? Didn't she sleep with her boss for that job? Let the crowd do the rest. Claire lived for perception. She didn't care if her life was hell as long as it looked perfect. So I didn't touch her physically, didn't shout, didn't stalk her. I strangled her with silence and truth. By 4 p.m., my lawyer called. She knows we filed. Good, I said. She already contacted a firm. She's fighting back. Let her. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about cleansing. About tearing out every poisonous root she planted in my life and burning it. Then, around 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. Claire. She wasn't wearing a robe or heels or perfume this time. Just jeans and a sweater. No makeup. Hair tied up like she didn't sleep. I opened the door slowly. Can we talk? She asked, voice unusually soft. I didn't move. About what? How many people you cheated on me with? How a man died inside my house while you were grinding on him. She swallowed. Her eyes looked tired. Please. Just 5 minutes. I let her in, not for her, but for closure. For me. She sat on the edge of the couch, the same one we picked out together 2 years ago. Back when I thought I knew who I married. I didn't love them, she said. You didn't love me either, I replied. She looked down. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just liked the idea of you. Of us. Honest, I muttered. Too bad it's 3 years too late. Claire's eyes filled with tears again. But they didn't hit me like they used to. They looked fake. Or empty. Or maybe I just seen too much. You can take the house, she whispered. The car. I don't care anymore. I nodded. I know. And the posts online, she added. You didn't have to do that. I didn't lie, I said. I never do. She stood slowly, eyes glossy. You're not the man I married. Good, I replied. That guy would have let you ruin him. She walked to the door, paused for a second. Ethan, what happens now? I looked her straight in the eyes. You disappear. I rebuild. That's what happens. She left. And this time? She didn't slam the door. The days after Claire left were a strange kind of quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet. But still. Still like the air right before a storm rips through. The kind of stillness that lets you finally hear your own thoughts and realize how much of yourself you lost in someone else's chaos. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't shattered. I was. But pain was just background noise now, drowned out by the adrenaline of taking control. The man I was 6 months ago would have begged her to stay, blamed himself, tried to fix what she destroyed. But he was gone. I had no room left for shame. Just clarity. The fallout began unfolding exactly as expected. Her job? On indefinite leave while HR investigated. Her boss, the same one she bragged about seducing, refused to even make eye contact with her in public after the audio leaked. I didn't expose everything, just enough to make people curious, skeptical, uncomfortable. Claire's perfect little Instagram world crumbled too. She went private, removed comments. But it was too late. Screenshots were already circulating. Gossip had turned to wildfire. I kept tabs, not because I missed her, but because I needed to know how far she'd fall before she stopped pretending she could fly. And then one night, it happened. I was sitting on the patio, drinking whiskey alone, when I got a message from her mom. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. I always knew something was off. If you need anything, call me. Even her own mother had turned. That told me everything. Claire had built her world on charm, seduction, and lies. And when people finally saw what was underneath, there was nothing. Just a hollow, manipulative shell in a designer dress. And yet, she still wasn't done. 2 days later, I got served. She filed a counterclaim. Claimed emotional abuse. Accused me of isolating her. Said I'd been spying, controlling her movements, making her feel unsafe. It was laughable, if it wasn't so disgusting. The same woman who slept with a parade of men behind my back now painted herself as the victim. I met with my lawyer the next day. She's going for the sympathy card, he said. Trying to spin this into emotional warfare. She's good at playing the wounded wife. I handed him the flash drive. Then let's remind the court who the real manipulator is. Inside were recordings. Of her laughing with her friends about getting away with it. Of her mocking me. Of her discussing how to make false claims if I ever got in the way. My lawyer listened to 5 minutes before shaking his head. This will bury her. Good, I said. Because I wasn't fighting to win. I was fighting to end it. I wanted her lies to suffocate her. I wanted the world to see the truth without me ever having to raise my voice. No drama. No theatrics. Just evidence. Reality. Cold. Sharp. Unforgiving. That weekend, I got another message. This time from Brandon's sister. The dead guy. I know we don't know each other, but I want you to know what she did ruined our family. Brandon wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve to die like that. I'm so sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Claire's poison didn't just stain my life. It left bodies behind. I typed back, slowly. You have nothing to apologize for. He's not the only one who was fooled. I pressed send. Then I closed the chat. And for the first time in weeks, I realized this story wasn't about her anymore. It was about what I would become after her. I sat in that courtroom and watched her walk in like she hadn't destroyed everything. Like the woman who let a man die in our bed wasn't the same one standing there in her polished beige blazer and crocodile tears. Claire played it well, she always did. A professional victim. All soft voice, stolen glances, and forced trembles. If I didn't know her, I might have believed her. But I did know her. I knew the tone she used when she lied. The way she bit her lip just before twisting a knife. The way she'd say, I never meant to hurt you, as if intent mattered when the blade was already buried. She painted a picture of herself as the neglected wife. Claimed I was cold. That I worked too much. That I stopped caring. That I made her feel invisible. Said she only looked elsewhere because I shut her out. No mention of the 6 men. No mention of Brandon's heart stopping mid-act in our bedroom. No mention of the motel receipts, the hotel charges, the voice messages where she laughed about how easy it was to play him. She called it an emotional prison. I called it gasoline, and I had a match. When it was my turn, I didn't shake. I didn't yell. I just handed over the drive. The judge plugged it in. Sat back. Pressed play. 5 minutes of audio. Claire's voice, raw, unfiltered, venomous. He's so boring. I could cheat on him right in front of his face, and he'd apologize for not being enough. Brandon passed out on top of me, total mood kill. I swear, if Ethan ever finds out, I'll just cry and say he was abusive. Men always fall for tears. The courtroom was silent. You could hear Claire's breathing hitch. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered something. Probably, what the hell did you do? I didn't look at her. Not once. Because she didn't deserve eye contact. She deserved indifference. Cold. Sharp. Precise. After the hearing, my lawyer patted my shoulder. You just want everything. And I had. The house. The accounts. The cars. She walked out of that room with nothing but her name, and even that was now covered in mud. But it wasn't the assets that mattered. It was the truth. Exposed. Unpolished. Undeniable. Claire didn't return to the house. She couldn't face it. Too many ghosts. Too much blood on the sheets, even if it wasn't visible anymore. I packed up what little she'd left behind, cheap perfume, fake designer shoes, a drawer full of promises she never meant to keep. I dumped it all in a box and left it on the porch. No note. No call. She texted me that night. You happy now? I didn't respond. The next morning, the box was gone. And just like that, she was a memory. But memories don't go quietly. For weeks after, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, half expecting to find her standing in the doorway, wearing that fake remorse like a mask. I'd walk into the kitchen and see flashes of her there, smiling while she plotted my downfall. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I felt free. Other days, I felt hollow. But every day, I felt stronger. I started rebuilding. The house. My routines. My sanity. The man who let Claire manipulate him was dead. In his place? Someone sharper. Wiser. Unapologetic. Someone who knew that love without respect was just slow destruction dressed up in affection. Claire tried to set fire to everything we had. And I let her burn it all. Because now I was standing in the ashes. And I was finally ready to build something better. 3 months passed. Not long in the grand scheme of things, but long enough for scars to start turning into armor. Long enough to breathe without tasting betrayal in the air. Long enough to look in the mirror and see myself again, not the man she broke, but the man who walked through the wreckage and came out on the other side sharper, harder, and clean. Claire vanished from my life the way a storm does, loud, destructive, and suddenly quiet. I never heard her name in the neighborhood again. People whispered, sure. There were rumors. Some said she moved in with a friend in another city. Others said she was trying to rebrand herself online. One guy told me he saw her at a bar a few towns over, drunk, alone, and screaming at a bartender. I didn't care. Whatever version of Claire still existed out there was no longer my concern. I had stopped bleeding over someone who wouldn't have spit on me if I were on fire. Instead, I started fixing the damage she left behind. I repainted the bedroom walls, the same ones I found her pressed against with another man. I donated all the furniture we'd picked out together. burned our wedding photos, threw away the box of anniversary cards I used to think meant something. I even replaced the mattress. That one felt personal. But the real healing came from the silence. No drama. No games. No second-guessing myself every time my phone buzzed. It was like my soul had been sleeping and finally woke up. And then, one night, it happened. I came home from work, kicked off my shoes, and found a letter on my doorstep. No name. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. I stood there for a long time before picking it up. Half of me wanted to toss it without reading, but the other half? Curious. I opened it. Ethan. You won. I know you did. You always were the better person, even when I didn't deserve it. Especially then. I could write 10 pages trying to explain why I did what I did, but the truth is, I don't even fully understand it myself. Maybe I wanted attention. Maybe I was empty inside and didn't know how to fill it. Maybe I just liked being wanted by people who didn't know me well enough to see who I really was. But you saw me, and I destroyed that. You didn't deserve what I did to you. Any of it. I thought I'd feel powerful taking control, sleeping around, being reckless. I thought I was teaching you a lesson, but all I did was burn down my own future. I hope you find someone who sees what I never appreciated. Someone who looks at you and knows they're lucky to have a man like that. I lost the only person who ever really loved me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know I'm sorry. Claire. I stared at the letter for a long time, not because it moved me, but because it didn't. There was a time when those words would have shattered me, when just one, "I'm sorry" from her would have made me drop everything and hold her again. But not anymore. I folded the letter once, then twice, and dropped it into the trash. Sometimes closure doesn't come in conversations or apologies. Sometimes closure is silence. It's a locked door, a deleted number, a heart that no longer flinches at her name. Claire thought she could break me. She thought I'd chase her, beg her, crumble for her. But the truth? I needed her betrayal to finally become who I was always meant to be. This was never her story. It was mine. And now, it's over.